Welcome to the Story Learning Podcast, regular doses of language learning tips and motivation to help you become fluent in any language. With me, Olly Richards. For language programs, books, free resources, and much more, visit StoryLearning.com.
Hello, welcome back to the show. Thanks so much for listening today. This is part 3 of a 3-part series all about time management in language learning, how to become an efficient learner who can reach their language goals quickly, even if you have a hectic schedule and struggle to find the time to learn languages. Now, in the last couple of episodes, episode 48 and 49, I started to kind of set the scene for this. I started to show you this process that I've developed over many years to learn languages quickly. Now, in other places, I've talked about kind of language learning methods, if you like, the best way to learn, how to start speaking, how to learn grammar, how to read, things like that. But this is a bit different. This is all about how you can use your time to the best of your ability. Because, if we can't actually sit down and study in the first place, then nothing else matters, right? So in episode 48, we talked about goal setting and how it's absolutely vital to have clearly defined short-term goals so that you've got something clear to aim towards and you don't kind of lose motivation by trying to aim for something that's too far off. Then in episode 49, which was the last episode, we talked about how to take your ideas from your goals and then narrow that down into the one thing. And the one thing is all about deciding the simplest way to reach those goals. All right, so if you haven't listened to those episodes, please go back and do that now, because what we're going to talk about in this episode isn't going to make so much sense if you don't. So once you've got your goals and once you've identified your one thing, it all gets quite simple from here. You've done all the hard work already. And the next step is to say, right, well, I know where I'm headed. I know what the one thing is that's going to get me there. Now what I need to do is break it down and decide on a few micro habits, tiny little things I can do to work towards my goals every day or even every hour. Okay, so the idea from this, when I was learning Cantonese, I was living in Qatar, which is a small Gulf state in the Middle East, and I was really, really busy because I had a full-time job. I was doing a master's degree. I had a whole number of things going on, and language learning really was just kind of way down on my priority list. And, I remember thinking to myself, if I don't study for an hour every night, I'm just going to be, I'm no good. I'm not going to learn this language. I'm not going to be successful. But it wasn't working. I can get home in the evening and I think, oh man, an hour or even 30 minutes? I'm so tired. I'm not sure I haven't got the energy or focus to do any of this stuff right now. And so more often than not, I didn't actually do any studying. But then from time to time, I would realize that I would say to myself, all right, well, let's just have a quick look at this book, or let's just have a quick blast on my flashcards or something like that. And I only intended to do like 30 seconds or so. But 5, 10, 15 minutes later, I was actually still going. And so I started thinking, well, there's something going on here. When I tried to do an hour, I end up doing nothing. And when I tried to do 30 seconds, I end up doing 15 minutes, half an hour, maybe even more. And so I started looking for ways to kind of trick my brain into getting started. And so, for example, I'd do things like as soon as I woke up in the morning, or just before I went to bed, I would spend 30 seconds on my flashcards learning Cantonese vocabulary. And of course, those 30 seconds, once you get going, you don't stop after 30 seconds. You carry on, which is what I did. And so straight away, I was finding myself doing lots of flashcards every day. And then I said to myself, right, well, how else can we do this? I also want to do lots of listening. So how about when I drive to work in the morning, I just put on some podcasts, Cantonese podcast in my car. And so that's what I did, and it became a kind of automatic thing. So I started building up these kind of really tiny little language habits that would only take a couple of seconds to do, but would actually build up and contribute to a lot of work over the course of a day and a week and a month. So this is what you've got to do. You've got to say to yourself, right, well, my goal is this, my one thing is that. What are the tiniest things I can be doing to work towards those goals every single day? And the key is to make it so tiny that you can't possibly fail to do it. Right? So in the case of, say, flashcards, well, 30 seconds is so small that you kind of you feel pretty silly not doing it, wouldn't you? If you had a kind of 30-second rule for your flashcards. Let's say you were trying to read a book and you said, okay, well, I'm just going to read one sentence of the book or one paragraph. It's so tiny that, however lazy you're feeling, however tired you are after work, it's something you can still do. And so this is the idea of the kind of micro habit, which is something that not only saves you tons of time, but also works if you are, just generally a bit lazy and procrastinating and can't seem to get up and study, because it's so small that you can't not do it. All right. So let's take a couple of examples. Let's say, for example, that your next step goal is to be able to order food in a restaurant when you go to Italy. And you've identified your one thing as being learning relevant food vocabulary. So what can you do to take that and say, okay, I want to make it as tiny as possible so that I can practice this stuff multiple times a day? Well, you could, for example, say to yourself, okay, I'm learning food, so I eat many times a day. So you could say to yourself, right, well, every time I walk into the kitchen, I am going to practice. I'm going to say out loud my order in Italian. So let's say you're going to go into the kitchen to get some bread and a glass of milk, for example. Then as you walk into the kitchen, you would say in Italian, can I have some bread and a glass of milk, please? And then later on, when you're going to lunch, before you get to lunch, as soon as you go to order it, instead you just say it out loud in Italian, you order it in Italian. And so every time you eat throughout the day, which might be 7 or 8 times during the day, you get to practice ordering. And this is dead easy, only takes a second, but it builds up this habit. And every time that you want to say something and you can't remember the word, well, that's a great reason to go away and look it up. Let's say that you're studying for an exam and your goal is to pass an exam, but you know that your big weakness is reading and you find it really difficult to understand stuff that you read. So you've identified your one thing as, okay, all I need to do to pass this exam is to practice my reading. Okay, so how can you make this so tiny that you can't possibly fail to do it? Well, I think what I would probably do is pick a spot in my house or at work that I walk past many times a day, maybe the living room table. And I'd take a book, or I'd take the kind of text that I need to practice reading for the exam, leave it open on the table, and I'd have a rule for myself that says, okay, every time I walk past this table, I'm going to read one sentence from the book. Now, it sounds really simple, right? And it is, and that's the whole point. Because how easy is that to do? How simple is that to do? How many times a day would you do it? And then the big question, do you think you would, every time you did this, only ever read one sentence? Or do you think from time to time you might kind of read 2 or 3 or maybe even a whole page? All right, so this is the idea. This is how you can start to take your goals and work towards them consistently throughout the day, however busy you are, wherever you happen to be, and to make real quick progress in your language goals. Now, this isn't to say that you also can't sit down and do, say, half an hour's study or an hour's sit down textbook study in the evening if you want to. Absolutely not. But this is just a way to make language learning happen consistently, effortlessly, easily throughout your day. So I hope that's helpful. This is everything I've talked about in this 3-part series. This is all part of a brand new course that I've put together called Time Control. I'm really proud of this name. I really like the name Time Control. It is my proven system for effortlessly working towards your language goals, achieving what you want to achieve in your language learning, however busy you are, however hectic your schedule might be. If you'd like to check out a video in which I talk more about this and teach you some more stuff, then go over to iwillteachyoualanguage.com/more time. That's MORETIME. And I've got a video there where I talk a little bit more about this system, and then let you know what to do if you'd like to try out the new course, if you'd like to become a better language learner, a more efficient language learner, even if it's a case of wanting to become like a better you, someone that's not dragged down and held back by procrastination and laziness, but someone who kind of gets up and goes out there and does what they need to do, achieves their goals. Again, iwillteachyoualanguage.com/more time. If you'd like to ask me a question for the podcast, please do. I'm always looking for new questions. You can go to iwillteachyoualanguage.com/ask to leave me a voicemail message there. I've also got a bunch of email questions coming through. You can leave a question in an iTunes review as well. I love getting iTunes reviews because they really help motivate me to keep going, because I know that people are valuing the podcast. So if you'd like to leave me a star rating and iTunes review, please do. You can go to iwillteachyoualanguage.com/review to do that. So thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode 51 of the podcast.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. And here at Story Learning, everything that I do is powered by stories, whether that's writing books, teaching lessons, crafting courses. My mission is to help everyone succeed at learning a new language through the power of story. And we now have comprehensive language courses in over 15 languages, from Spanish to French, Korean to Japanese, and across all levels from beginner to mastery. And you can take a 7-day free trial of any of these programs by visiting storylearning.com/courses. I've poured my heart and soul into creating these courses over the last 10 or so years, and we've helped tens of thousands of new students achieve their dreams of learning a new language, all through the power of story. So go ahead and take a free trial. There's no commitment. You can try out our method for free. See if this can also be the breakthrough for you that it's been for so many other people. storylearning.com/courses.